The 10 News received an invitation to see something only law enforcement ever gets to see in person, the inside of a drug tunnel. American authorities rarely allow media access, but we were given a personal escort by the Mexican military to see the most recent drug tunnel discovered and seized before it was ever finished. A very sophisticated tunnel demonstrating the links cartels will go to get drugs into this country.
Our story begins here in the Otay warehouse district of Tijuana, an unsuspecting building just like hundreds of others in this bustling business park. But this one held a deep secret for months, a drug tunnel, almost 4 football fields long with sophisticated engineering, an elevator, electricity, ventilation, and a rail system. It could have generated millions for the cartel building it, but it was shut down before it ever reached its destination. The warehouse tunnel was just blocks from the U.S. border. Jorge Nieto, a Tijuana reporter, shows us just how close. So the wall is right there.
Yeah, the brown one.
So there's a very good chance they go right up under the wall and reach another warehouse on the U.S. side.
Yeah.
Inside, the warehouse still looks very much like it did the day of the seizure. Hundreds of bags filled with dirt from the excavation of the tunnel. Near the front of the building, down a flight of stairs, a small closet. Inside was the elevator shaft, almost 40 feet deep. We had to be lowered down with a harness because the elevator is now broken. We were told we would have less than 30 minutes with our cameras because of the heat, humidity, and lack of air. So we've just come down what was the elevator shaft. We had to be lowered about 12 meters. They tell us that the tunnel here runs about 300 meters in the direction of the U.S. border. They never knew where it was going to come up on the other side. As soon as you get out of the shaft, you can feel the humidity. Without any type of ventilation, you can't imagine what the workers here were put through, filling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these bags with this dirt. Take it, haul it out, start all over again. The tunnel was so new, the workers only had time to reinforce the first 15 feet of wall with plywood and 2x4s, just wide enough for a motorized rail system that would haul the bags of dirt and eventually the drugs through the tunnel. The only light we have is from small flashlights and our camera light. The walls are covered with partially exposed rocks. As we go further, deeper and deeper into the tunnel, it seems to just get smaller and smaller and hotter. The labor must have been intensive and incredibly claustrophobic. The tunnel was unfinished and the military has no idea where the exit was targeted. A total of 17 people were arrested that day and the warehouse was shut down. The persons or cartel responsible for funding the construction of the tunnel are still unknown to this day. As for the laborers, the Mexican military has an idea where some of those workers and their supplies came from. You can see that in a web-only exclusive right now on 10news.com.
Okay, so no light except for what you brought. Cramped, limited air. Did it make you nervous at all being down there?
You know, Pat asked me if I was scared. That's the one thing that struck me most more than anything else was that claustrophobic feeling. Imagine a tiny little steam room and you're crawling 300 yards into it. So after a while, the tunnel begins to narrow and that claustrophobic feeling begins to take over. That's about the point where I turned around and said, you know what? The end of this, there's just going to be a wall. Yeah. The ceiling is leaking. Yeah. This thing could cave in at any moment.
And that's when you got out.
That's when we got out.
All right.
Interesting.
Thank you, Steve. Interesting look.
No matter where you stand on immigration reform, a lack of resolve here has become a major problem for our neighbors to the south. Deportations of illegal immigrants have caused the homeless population in Tijuana to explode. I recently crossed the border to see firsthand this humanitarian issue it's created. It's difficult to believe until you actually see it. Stunning when you do. People, hundreds of homeless living in the riverbed of the Tijuana Canal.
Shack right there, somebody in there. Hey, go home.
Others choose to live here, inside the dark maze of canal tunnels. We're only 50 yards inside before we find a collection of scraps and several small shanties. This is Michelle. She's lived in the tunnel for 2 months.
She says she's willing to get out of this kind of life, but she just needs some help.
We were here back in 2006 when only a handful of drug addicts were hiding inside the canal tunnels just to get high. Back then, the Tijuana police just hauled them off to jail. But we have returned to find the police no longer make arrests. The homeless population
is just too overwhelming.
Over 400,000 individuals were deported out of the United States last year alone. Most are from Mexico or South America, and every day hundreds are dropped right here in Tijuana. They have no transportation, no job, no money, and no home, and most of them end up right here in the canal of the Tijuana River.
We think there are at least 4,000 people living there every day.
And you now call this your biggest problem in Tijuana?
Right now is our biggest problem.
This coming from the guy who 4 years ago, the cartel was the biggest issue you had.
But most never leave because home for them is with family back in the United States.
A lot of these people, they have the idea to go back to the United States, so they want to stay in the canal.
How long have you lived in this bunker?
People like Ismail. He's one of 4 people who live in this underground bunker in the riverbed. He tells us he used to work construction in Riverside before he was pulled over by police and deported. He lives like this, close to the border, for the opportunity to one day return to his family.
Do you want to go home, or do you want to go back to the United States? What do you want to do from here?
¿Qué quieres hacer, hijo? ¿Te quieres quedar aquí? ¿Te quieres regresar a Estados Unidos? ¿O qué es lo que haces aquí? Quiero regresar a Estados Unidos. He wants to go back to the U.S.
You have family there?
¿Tienes familia allá, hijo?
Sí.
And here's another one.
They build houses in trees, under bridges, but most are not afraid to make their homes right out in the open in the canal. Some, like Arturo, make money by recycling. His goal is to raise just enough money to hire a coyote or board a panga and get back across the border to his family in Santa Ana.
So you would rather just go illegally with the coyote just to get home?
Prefieres irte legalmente con el coyote, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Que irte a tu casa de
Don't have any other choice?
No tienes otra alternativa.
No, pues tengo mi familia allá.
He says, I don't have a choice. He has family over there, and he was willing to try to go back.
Wow, incredible. What do they do when it rains?
Well, that's the problem. We were there back just last month when we had our most recent rainstorm, and the problem was the river floods. That's the issue there. All the homeless were gone, but we're told that as soon as the water recedes, they just come back, they rebuild their bunkers and their shanties after that water goes away. And we've got a lot more of this on 10news.com as well as on our Facebook page. That's where you can leave your own comments on this story.
A growing problem,
Yes.
Steve.